Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk about, I guess what I would call reverb staging. Similar to gain staging, where people, a lot of times they talk about gain stages 1, 2, and 3. I get a lot of questions about my reverb section on my pedal board, and I just wanted to sort of talk you through the way that I put this together and practically, I guess, how I use it during a worship set. So I guess we'll jump right in here and I'll show you. So I think about this in terms of similar to a gain staging where it's 1, 2, 3 and so on. The first stage that I use for reverb is typically like my always on, I guess. So where my dry signal is this. My stage 1, keep it on nearly all the time, is so kind of a longer trail, not a very high mix, and a darker tone. So the rule of thumb that I find to be very helpful is that for playing, so not swells, not ambient, but plain chords, you're going to find that a darker tone is going to work better. It's going to sound less splashy. It won't get in the way as much, but it's going to add a lot without being overwhelming and distracting. So that's the stage 1 there. From there, where I go, if I want to do some more, I guess, ambient sounding playing, but not necessarily an ambient world with swells and kind of real spacey sounds, I'm going to add what I call in the tutorial videos I do like a washy verb. So that goes from, say, this to this. So you can hear it's pretty spacey, but you can still play chords with it. So if I kick on some drive, I can still doesn't get in the way too bad. But it'll give you that nice trail at the end to help those big parts kind of hang out there a little bit. I also find with throwing on that washy verb, if I'm going to play a big part like that, it helps it sit back in the mix, so it's still there, but as you kick on more reverb, your sound's going to sit further and further back in the mix, so those big parts, if you don't want them to, aren't going to punch people in the face, basically. So moving on from the washy verb, similar approach, so it's another washy type reverb, but what I do, instead of having that darker tone, so this, excuse me, I move to this. So still pretty washy, very washy indeed, but it's a brighter sound, and that works really well if you want the notes to really, really stick out and to hang for a long time. So I can think of Seas of Crimson. So we'll go here. It's got that part during the bridge that where there was sin, your love rushed in. So that's going to hang a lot compared to this one. So there's a difference there. I find that the brighter reverb setting is going to be really, really good for those single note. I really need this to hang. An example of that is the tutorial I did for How Deep the Father's Love for Us by Austin Stone. I use that bright, washy reverb a lot in that song. Those parts really, really, really stick out. How does that one go? So really prominent reverb, really splashy sounding. To stop there for a second, if your reverbs have pre-delay settings, like the Big Sky does here, pre-delay is really important, especially if you plan playing chords and doing rhythm work with these delays. So if I can give you an example, I have the pre-delay set up at noon on my main washy verb, which is the darker tone. So that's going to sound... Now what pre-delay is, I'll crank it up even higher now so you can hear the dramatic effect. What pre-delay is how long after I hit the chord does the reverb kick in. So here's it like maxed out. There it is. Right, so it's going to take a while on that one. I have it set to noon, which is as opposed to no pre-delay at all. It's nearly instant. So what happens when you put more pre-delay in there, the reverb gives the note some room to get there before it washes it out with reverb. So you'll find that the notes are going to stick out a little better, going to have more definition, and just be generally less saturated too quickly, I guess is the best way to put it. So if your reverbs have pre-delay and you plan on using these settings here, some washier verbs but for chord work, you'll find that putting the pre-delay up around noon is going to help you out a lot. So moving from there, I go to my swell type verb, which I use the Strymon Flint for, and that's going to sound like this. So as this is hanging here, if you see it, I'm trying to have a video going of the pedal board at the same time. I put these big communication knobs, they're called, from Radio Shack. I put them on the pedal so I can do something like this. And because the pedal's nearly infinite decay, I can bring that note back really whenever I want. So it can hang out there sometimes for 20, 30 seconds or so, and I can bring it back and it's still pretty prominent. But that's nice because, especially being able to control it with your foot, so I can play a song like Place of Freedom has this, by Highlands Worship has this part in it where on the bridge, it comes in with this big single note line, but it needs some help to kind of hang out there. So let me just add a bit of delay here. So the way that I work it is put on the swell verb, and what's critical about the swell verbs, I have to have this feature, is when I turn off the pedal, I want that trail to hang. So it has to be buffered bypass. True bypass pedals will not allow this feature. So on Strymon pedals and a lot of others, you can set it between buffered and true bypass. I'm going to take buffered bypass all day long on these. So I can do it, I can take this note and kick it off. So the pedal's off, but I still get the notes hanging there, which means that anything I play going forward won't be just washed out completely by that swell verb. And so here's why that's important. This song's in the key of B, so it's going to sound kind of weird, but... So I would do something like this. So you get the idea. Now what was kind of cool when I did that was like the second note got really washy. Like I didn't even want it that washy. So I reached down with my foot, and then in a worship set I would do the same thing. I'd take that knob and I'd roll it back to kind of kill some of the wash, so that you can kind of have real-time control if you don't have an expression pedal or something. These are boards. Our worship guys' boards get pretty big pretty fast, so finding room for an expression pedal probably not going to happen. But I find that knob to be super useful because I can kill that wash pretty quickly, and then so after I hit that last note where I sort of bend it up and let it kind of whine a little bit, killed the washy swell verb, and then started playing chords, and I had that chord tone again without it being really, really washed out. So I find that to be, just like an expression pedal, very, very useful. It's been pretty awesome since I put those on, and you can see on the El Capistan I have that as well, so I can turn up like a really high mix quarter note delay or really low mix with just, you know, hanging out there and using my foot to control the mix. Now the last one I have on here is the Shimmer Verb, which rarely gets used. I don't use it a lot. I mean, it's good or bad, whatever you want to call it. I know it gets criticized a lot, but it's nice to have it. I use it on like songs like Ever Be, Unstoppable God. I use it on that for the bridge, but so just basic shimmer. And what's nice about the Strymon pedals is that it's got this freeze function, so now that's going to hold. And that could be cool, you know, during prayer moments or just times of contemplative worship where you can lay a pad down if you don't have a keyboard player, or if your keyboard player maybe sings a lot and isn't playing keys all the time. I can find that to be a pretty cool feature too, which is one of the big reasons why I bought the Big Sky in the first place. So just to kind of do a quick recap of the way that I set up my reverbs, I look at it in terms of staging. So I have a dry signal here. Stage 1. And that might always be on, I mean 95% of the time. Then I would say a stage 2 type reverb is my darker one that I like to use for chords. And sounds okay with overdrive, so. And then stage 2, I was explaining this to my buddies the other day, and I was like, stage 1, play chords. Stage 2, play chords, should be fine. Stage 3, never ever play chords, because it sounds just ridiculous. So there's an example of why I don't like it. But it is great for the single note washy stuff. And it can sound cool with overdrive, so if you want to hang notes out there. And then, so that's stage 1, 2, 3. Then I would say swell would come next, which and then of course shimmer. So I think that a great combination, if you don't want to have, like I have 1, 2, 3 separate reverbs on here. One of them has 3 reverbs in it, so I have 5 reverb settings at any one time. I think I could get away with, for the way that I like to structure things, I think that I could get away with 3, likely get away with 2. So if I could only choose 2, I would choose just a normal dry signal. I would choose this washy verb and just try to arrange it somewhere on my board where I can have control of the mix with my foot. And then nice swell verb. But the key with the swell verb is to have it be buffered bypass, so I can kick it on and hang, if I just want to hang one note out there, if I'm playing, say something like, I can hang that up, right? So that's, to me, critical, having a buffered bypass swell verb. If I could have 3, then I would basically shift all that over 1 and make room for the always on. So I'd have the always on verb, a washy verb, and then a swell verb. So in a nutshell, that's the way that I set up the reverb section of my board. Again, I get a lot of questions about that. I hope the demonstration and kind of talking through the methodology behind it is helpful to you. I do have some recommendations. Obviously, what I like is on my board. But the new RV6 from Boss, the RV5, obviously has been a staple for a long time. Incredible sounding reverb. Don't care what anyone says about the price or whatever. It's great, and then you hear it on worship recordings all over the place. And then the RV7 from Digitech is another one that's buffered bypass and can do a lot of this stuff. So don't feel like you have to buy the Strymon stuff. I buy it because we cover a lot of ground at church and in the tutorials that I do. I like to have the reverbs to be able to call them up at any time, not to have to bend down and tweak stuff. So that is a personal preference thing for me. Doesn't mean you need to go out and be a Strymon fanboy like the rest of us, or a lot of us are. I didn't start there. You don't have to start there. Find a couple reverbs, one with buffered bypass, and if you want to set them up kind of the way that I recommended it there, I think you'll find it helpful. That certainly helped me when I was getting into this kind of playing, is to understand the stages of reverbs, the tones of reverbs. So bright is more conducive to single note stuff, dark more conducive to playing chord work, pre-delay up for chorded, for reverbs where you're going to play chords and play some, where you want the notes to be more defined, and then you're going to want the tone to be brighter, the pre-delay to be down if you want the swell verb to kick on like instantly, or if you want that reverb to be immediately there. So pre-delay up for more defined, articulate stuff. It's going to keep your notes separated. Pre-delay down if you want it to kick on automatically and start washing out your tone immediately. So if this was helpful, click like. I'd appreciate that. Subscribe. Always have videos coming out, trying to make them as much as possible in between, being a dad and being a husband and working and all that stuff. Check out GuitarforHISGLORY.com. There's some more resources there, pedal reviews and write-ups and stuff. And I love sharing this stuff with you guys. Love serving you in this way, and I hope it's been helpful altogether. God bless you guys, and just make good worship and make a joyful noise to the Lord. It's so worth it playing for our God and bringing people closer to Jesus. He allows us to do that. He uses us as tools to move His kingdom forward, and it's a blessing. So God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.